You didn't believe anything that I said. When they came, you were not prepared. Then it all fell right on your head. And now you're lying in your bed. You've got yourself in a rabbit hole. You're trapped 'cause you did not let go. You took that bait and now...
All right, guys. Hey there, it's Kerry and
Tiffany.
And we're here talking with Margie Kay, who is, oh my goodness, just the most incredible human being. I'm not even really sure she's human, to be honest with you. But to start off, I mean, I hate to read your bio completely, but because I think there's just so much here and some things that I'd really like to touch on. But I know that you remember your first abduction at what, 16 months old, 18 months old?
Maybe even earlier than that, sometime between like 12 and 16 months.
That's amazing. Yeah. And so you've been abducted, you've worked with ETs, you are psychic. Do you like that word? Is that okay for me to use that word?
I prefer remote viewing just because the term psychic has, these weird connotations with it. It's not exactly the same thing that I do, but
okay.
I mean, it uses the same part of the brain. So it's
well, and you can scan bodies, and that is a story in itself. You have the X-ray. You're a medical intuitive. You work with the police, and you've solved. I think I read. I mean, you've solved a lot.
50 missing persons, homicides, thefts, things like that. Yeah, you're a busy lady.
Yeah, somewhere around 54 cases. Yeah,
and you have a day job, and you're.
Oh, yeah.
Really involved with MUFON, and you have a paranormal investigation group. I mean, you really have so much going on. And so I would, if it's okay with you, I'd love to just go a little bit into the background. So you have been abducted by ETs, and you do remember it.
Yeah, I do. I only remember actually 2 events where I was on a ship, and I suspect that there were other times that I don't remember. But then there were other times, most of the visitations were visitations, and in my house for most of them. So there would be ETs in the house speaking to me, or whatever. Working on healing, I've had several healings by different types, and it's been very interesting, and there's been a learning curve to it, because at first I was afraid, like anybody else would be. And it took me a long, long time to get used to the idea that there really are other entities in this world. Mm-hmm. And it's not just our third dimensional physical human beings living on this planet. There are multiple different types of entities. And I've come to understand that they're interdimensional, and they're probably with us in the same space all the time, and they just move into our space when we ask for their help, or for whatever their agendas may be.
Well, I completely agree with you. And forever I've been saying that I feel that they could sit here with us. It's just if we don't match the frequency, then we don't see them. If you don't tune your dial to 101 KLOL, then you're not going to hear the music, right?
Yeah. Can I ask
Exactly.
What was their agenda with you, and who were they, and
well, there are a lot of different theys, but one of the big agendas that they have with me was teaching me and showing me things, and opening my mind over the years, and then giving me gifts or talents. Right around my birthday every year, I would get a new thing, so to speak, and it would increase in intensity. So every year around December, I look forward to
level
something
up.
New. Yeah.
It's like getting
and
a
I
new
think
app.
that I've heard that happens with other people as well, right around their birthday.
Huh.
Like what are some of the? I think I read like the X-ray vision, like the ability to scan bodies. What are some of the other abilities that they've enhanced or introduced?
Well, it started out with just being able to sense things, and then I started seeing like parts of the human body that would have a color associated with them, like red for inflammation, or very, very dark, or a black color if it's cancer, things like that. I would see colors,
Yep.
or just sense an area. But over the years, that increased. And then in 1985, I was visited for the first time in conscious memory, where I was fully conscious. And this is when I was visited by Valiant Thor. I was in Seattle, and I was leaving my massage therapist, and I happened to have my brother and my daughters with me because they came to town with me. We had someplace else to go. And I was getting ready to leave, and all of a sudden my massage therapist says, "Do you want to try a light experiment?" Only his voice wasn't the same as it usually is. And this just came out of the blue. We were getting ready to leave, and I thought, this is strange. And I said, "Well, yeah, I do. Let's, what is it?" And he says, "Well, look at this green light, and then look at this red light." And they were big, bright lights. And then he had me go back and forth with that for a couple of minutes. And he says, "Now look at me. What do you see?" And I saw a skeleton standing there talking and not anything else. And I just was just flabbergasted, my mouth open. And I said, "Oh, I see your skeleton." He says, "Good." And then this face appeared on the wall, and it was an extraterrestrial. He looked human, but he had this hat on that had this like point in the center of it. It could look kind of like an M helmet that covered up all of his hair. And he said, "I am Thor, and now you have X-ray vision, and I'll be in touch with you in the future." And he disappeared. And then everything went back to normal. And I asked everybody in the room, "Did you just see that?" And I'm expecting them to say yes, but they said no. They saw nothing and they heard nothing. It was only for me to see and hear. And so we left. And then I just gradually discovered that if I wanted to look at somebody, I had been doing readings for some time by that point. So the next time I did a reading, and I wanted to scan to see about health issues, all of a sudden I could see much easier inside the body and see the skeleton, and just these things would, be pointed out to me where there might be an issue. And so my readings became extremely accurate after that. And then it's only increased. So now it's like I'm actually inside the body. It's better than a CAT scan or an X-ray or an MRI, anything like that. I'm actually looking at it.
Incredible ability.
Well, so do you turn it on? I mean, you don't
Yeah.
walk around seeing that. You have to
No.
go into that space.
No, I have to, like you said, turn the switch, which generally now, I used to have to go into a kind of a meditative trance state for a while before I could do that. But now it's almost instantaneous. It just takes me a couple of seconds.
Now, are you able to see sort of the emotion or the experience that is contributing to, say, a cancer, or are you able to see
Yeah.
like the healing that's needed there? Are you able to help give that guidance to people of like, this is maybe where it started and this is how you can move through it?
Yes. Of course, I have to say this is for entertainment purposes only,
Right,
because I'm
right.
licensed professional. But a lot of times the person's guides will appear,
Yeah.
and they will tell me directly what's happening and what could be done to cure the problem, or prevent it from coming back. And then other times, if it's an organ that's involved, the actual organ itself, which is something that I just picked up a few years ago, will speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll communicate directly with the organ, and it will tell me what the problem is and what the solution is.
That's
Quit
incredible.
stressing me out. Quit pouring these toxins in me. Yeah, something.
Well, okay. That is, Val Thor. I mean, I know that now do you do work with him?
Can you explain who? I mean, I'm just have
I
a very
do.
little bit of a knowledge of who
He's
he
kind of
is.
dreamy, I think. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I didn't know who Val Thor was until a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I didn't know that the Valiant Thor was my Thor, because all I knew was that he was in contact with me once in a while, giving me guidance or giving me new gifts. And he just said his name was Thor to begin with. But then, if somewhere around 2006, I had a shop on the square in Independence, and I was getting ready to leave, and there was this weird lightning storm where there was only lightning and no thunder and no rain. And my daughter called me because she had left the office a few minutes earlier. She said, "Mom, you've got to look at these clouds over the RLDS temple. They're very, very low and very weird." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll be sure to do that." So I had my phone sitting on my, oh, that's a pretty white cat you've got there. So I had my phone ready, and I came down the street, and I see these clouds that are like 20 feet above the ground that are covering up this spiral RLDS temple. And if you don't know anything about that, that's a weird thing. It's like this shape of a spiral. Anyway, I suddenly see this beam of light go from the top spire of the temple at this angle up into the clouds, and I couldn't see anything else. I couldn't see a craft or anything, just, this light. And I'm thinking, because I had heard weird things about that temple before. So at that moment, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is this? And Thor's voice comes in my head telepathically, and he says, "Well, this is Thor, and we have a craft here, and we're communicating with the people in the sub-basement of the temple."
Wow.
And I was in shock, but I wasn't in terrible shock, because, he said, "This is Commander Thor."
Commander.
So at that point, I'm like, oh, Commander Thor. I wonder who that is. Well, I was to find out a little later on exactly who he was through the help of another psychic friend of mine. He contacted her because I hadn't been speaking to him. I'd been too busy with my everyday work to concentrate or meditate. And we'd been in communication. And he was helping me do magazines and write books and telling me what to write. They give me all kinds of information that you wouldn't believe. And so I hadn't been doing that for a while, and my friend calls me up, and she says, "Who the heck is Thor?" I said, "Oh, I have never told you about this." And she says, "Well, he wants you to contact him right away."
You're ghosting him.
Okay. So through her, I found out that he was Valiant Thor, who visited the Pentagon between 1957 and 1961. And Dr. Frank Stranges met him and visited with him and was friends with him, and he wrote books about him.
Yeah.
And everything just went crazy from there. I was totally shocked that that's who it was. But since then, he has saved my life 3 times.
How so?
Literally. I was very, very sick all 3 times with severe bronchitis that turned into pneumonia, and it was very serious, and I knew it was, could have been deadly. And I asked for his help, and he appeared all 3 times and took it away.
So how are you, clearly there's some sort of a contract here. How do you think you two line up?
Well, he told me that he and his group of people, which are very advanced beings, choose certain people to work with so that we can in turn help raise consciousness and raise vibration.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, how many of us are there?" And he says 1 in 10,000. So he works with 1 in 10,000. He's a very busy person.
I was going to say, that sounds like a few.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of us are talkative about it, and some of us are not. Some people are very quiet, and he said just having presence is enough to help raise people's vibration. And I found out, and I see you're nodding that you know this as well. I found out over the years, just being around my own family, that is the case.
Right.
That in fact is true.
Well, I was told that recently too, that it's just a frequency that we emit, and that it helps lift. That there are a lot of people that you're right, just by being there. It's not that you have to be involved and do things. Sometimes just by being, that's enough. But then there are others that are called to actually do things, like yourself. So okay, so you've always had. I think I read somewhere that at like growing up, you've always had experiences. You've always been able to feel things, talk, see things. So when did you actually come out with this? When did it really come into your everyday life?
I didn't really go very public with this until maybe 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Only my friends and family and people I did readings for, I had, a group of people that I did that for, and we're just kind of word of mouth. And then when I got involved doing police work, that spread amongst the detectives and the private detectives and things like that. So that's how they found out about it. And I think really what made me decide to go very public with this was the fact that I was seeing all of these missing persons cases that I could help with if people would call me immediately. Mm-hmm. So I decided to go public and put up the website and all of that and to let them know, because the thing is that they usually are calling me way after the fact when it's too late to do anything.
Yeah.
And I was only able to help actually save one person because it was the family who called me. It was a group of ladies that were attorneys that I had been seeing for years. And then one of their nieces disappeared, and she called me immediately. She said the police have been there all day, been doing this, and they can't find the girl. And I found her in 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Is that something you're still doing? Do you still offer that for people?
Oh, yes. Yes, and I don't charge anything.
So that you want to give your website?
Yes, I mean, so they can reach you by your website, right?
Yeah, my website, margiekay.com.
MargieKay.com. Margie Kay.
Right, and send me an email, or if it's an emergency situation, they can call me at 816-833-1602.
Okay, and that is actually on the website also.
Yeah.
Well,
what a great service to people, because that is just such a, it does happen, whether it's a runaway or an abduction or just an accident, to be able to, you're just able to tune into the frequency of that person and physically say this is where they're at.
I just need to hear their name, and that usually does it. Occasionally it doesn't, and I may have to ask a couple other questions, but that's all I want to know. Wow. That name frequency is usually enough.
There are times when I'd joke with Tiff and I'd say, if I ever got abducted, how would they know? And she said, we would find you. We would figure out how to find you. Anyway.
Yes.
Calling Margie. Well, like our friend Elisa just got lost in the tundra, and she was out
Norway.
there 24 hours looking for her, and it was just a few minutes before, hours before life and death. So.
And they found her.
They fortunately found her alive, fine, and she's okay.
So, okay, so that's just one tiny piece. You are really involved. Now you're still really involved with MUFON?
Yes.
Are you still the director? You're the assistant director.
State director for Missouri.
Wow.
Yes.
So you guys don't now? Do you just look at ET sites? Not paranormal?
We look at anything having to do with UFOs or landings, because that's what MUFON is mainly interested in. But that if there is something else involved, such as paranormal or Bigfoot or crop circles, we are trained to investigate those things too. And some of us have gone beyond the normal training to study these other subjects. And of course, I've been involved in paranormal for years. So I believe that it is better to know all of these subjects when you're investigating anything out of the ordinary, anything unexplained, whether it's UFOs or paranormal or what, because often we'll find things cross over and there's more than one thing going on. I mean, I'm working on a case right now where there's UFOs, ETs, orbs, Bigfoot, and paranormal in one location.
That's It's a vortex.
It's
What's
crazy.
happening?
City
It's
Ranch.
a portal.
Yeah.
Yeah, portal is the word. Yes, and I found a number of portals where this is occurring.
Well, there's this group, and I don't know a lot about him. Actually, Bill, who introduced me to you, was telling me about it. Free, and
Yes.
and with Dr. Edgar, yeah, thank you. He was the sixth man on the moon, and Dr. Schild, and they didn't they go around the world and they look at these what they think are psychic experiences, and they're starting to link them with ET contact. I mean, so like ETs don't just land on your front lawn. I mean, they come in many different ways, channelings.
Yes. In fact, I'm working on a chapter for their newest book. I was asked to write a chapter by Renario Hernandez, and in fact, it's kind of funny because he got involved in this after his own sighting and event happened, and after he spoke to me. I wrote an article about him, put it in my magazine, and then he wanted to be completely private about it and not speak about it to anyone else. The next thing I know, he's talking to Dr. Mitchell and starting this new organization. Wow. So he really, really wants answers, and I like their approach to it because it's telepathic contact, and it is. I believe that the ETs will appear to only people who have a certain frequency, who have the ability to see them, because they're there all the time. It's just simply us opening our minds to them being there. And not only ETs, but other types of entities.
Like Bigfoot. Yeah.
Well, that's what they say about Bigfoot is that they go in and out. Yeah. Through this dimension.
I believe that Bigfoot is a fifth dimensional or maybe a higher dimensional being, and can phase down into third dimension if it wants to. But and I'm in telepathic contact with an entire clan of Bigfoot, and I didn't even think that was possible until about 4 or 5 years ago when I ran into one, and I was investigating a UFO sighting where there was a Bigfoot involved, and I became to know this one Bigfoot, and then he introduced me to the rest of the clan. And in fact, they have a shaman, a female shaman in their clan who has worked on me and done healing several times. Wow. And they also show me how to do healing work.
So they can come to you. You can remote view them, or you can go to them telepathically.
I simply ask. I just send a telepathic message. Is someone available? Can the shaman come? And she's there. It's amazing.
So recently, speaking to that, I was told, I have a guide, Bob, and I was told by Bob that he said all of these things that we think are miracles and they're magic, they're not. You will find it out. It's the same thing as like flipping on the light switch. You know, if you bring somebody from 200 years ago, they would think, magic. But it's not. And neither a lot of these things are we just don't know what they are yet.
I agree with you 100%. And that is, very, very similar to what I express myself, that this is not magic. This is something that's normal and that everybody has the ability to do. And all they have to do is open up their psychic center, which is deep in the brain. It's the Eye of Horus. And once that is activated, then all kinds of cool things start happening.
So
it's just opening awareness.
How do you teach the opening of awareness? Because I looked on your website and you teach all kinds of sensing and communicating with different energies like ley lines and crystals and spirits. You're teaching that. So how do you teach someone to help open that Eye of Horus to be able to see this and be able to communicate?
Well, I have a course. I have a workshop called Remote Viewing Workshop.
Okay.
And in fact, I'm teaching the next one in St. Louis in September.
Okay.
And it's a day plus a couple hours. So it's a Friday night and then an all-day Saturday. And it's a very, very intensive. I go through why your third eye or your psychic center is not working. how to repair the pineal gland, how to meditate, and just, everything that is involved in this work, and anything that's involved in trying to stop you from doing the work, I talk about in that. And it seems like a short amount of time to be able to teach that, but what I do is give people the tools to go home and practice it every day. And if they'll do what I say and do these training modules, in a year, they'll be remote viewing.
Wow.
No problem. And I've had lots of students be able to do that. None of them are, as talented as I am with it, but that's just because I've been doing this for most of my life, and I'm 62 now. So, that's just how it is.
Second
And
nature
there's
for you.
my method of remote viewing is not the standard government method. They also have ways of teaching, and you can take their classes if you want to, but it's totally different than what I do, because mine is just a natural thing that I came across and that I was taught by, beings that have a higher vibration.
Don't you think that there's so many things that we all do, but we just don't know that it's what we're doing? I mean, like, when did you realize, oh, when I imagine that I'm there, I'm actually there? I mean, was there a time that you had kind of put the whole thing together, all the pieces, or have you always known?
I think I always knew if I was doing something such as out of the body experience or sending my etheric body out. I knew exactly what I was doing, and it was intent. And I think that's the biggest thing with me. That it still keeps surprising me now. I wonder if I can do that, or let me try to do that, and then I can do it. And I'm like, oh, I wish I'd done that before, because I just didn't think of it before, But we all have those abilities if we would just think about trying them.
Well, and realize it's inside of you. We all seek the outside, the external, and I think there's so many times when if we just get quiet but you're right though, you do have to recognize it first. You do have to feel it first. Mothman. You want to talk about Mothman? I'm sorry, I'm shifting gears
sure.
here.
Well, I didn't really know anything about Mothman until we started getting reports in Kansas City, and people were calling me because they know I'm the woo-woo person. So they're telling me about these giant bird sightings, and I started collecting sightings in about 2012. People seeing very, very large, and they're describing birds or something with wings that is the size of at least 10 feet in width on the wings, up to 36 feet in width. And at first, I thought, no, this has to be something. So I start digging, and called the Missouri Department of Conservation. They said, no, there's nothing that big here. The biggest thing we have is eagles. There's no condors here. California condor is a 9.5-foot wingspan. So maybe there's a rogue one around here. I don't know. But when you get up to 35, 36 feet, 30 feet, that's totally insane. And unfortunately, nobody has any pictures. And until I get pictures or video, I won't really know what's going on. And there's a little bit different description from different people. A couple of people have said they look like pterodactyls with no feathers, just flat wings. One person said she saw a Batman about 7 feet tall, she and her husband, standing next to a tree, and he fluttered his wings that looked like bat wings, but it was a humanoid creature with red glowing eyes, and some people have described the Mothman like that. Mm-hmm. And then other people have said it looks like a giant thunderbird. So then I had to go look at Native American legend for the thunderbird. And oddly, we had this weird thunder in Kansas City not long ago, last month. And I even commented to some of my friends from different parts of town about how weird the thunder was. It kept going on and on and on and on and not stopping. And there was no lightning and just this long, long thunder. And then the next day, I find out about the Thunderbird, and the thunder itself for the Native Americans would be a warning, so to speak, that the Thunderbird was coming. And then the Thunderbird was a a warning that something negative was going to happen, or it caused negative things. And it's kind of like the Mothman, where in Point Pleasant in the 1960s, people saw this giant creature with big wings that they're calling the Mothman prior to that bridge collapse. So then people in Kansas City are starting to get worried and concerned that there's some bad thing going to happen in the city. Well, I did a little bit of digging online, and Chicago is having the same thing, but they're having even more sightings in Kansas City the past few years. In 2017, they had 55 sightings of Mothman.
Wow.
So then I thought, well, what's going on in Chicago? What's going on in Kansas City? And it's violence, and it's shootings and killings. And both places, it has increased so much. So I wonder if that isn't it. I mean, I don't know what the explanation is. It's just something to think about.
It's chicken or the egg, that's interesting.
I feel like I've heard somebody who channeled the Mothman, and it was more of he was coming to warn. He wasn't causing
He wasn't
it.
bearing
He was
that.
saying, I'm letting you know this is where you guys are at vibrationally, and this is what you guys are creating. I'm letting you know. So I don't know.
That certainly could be.
If that rings true.
And does it have anything to do with the people are hearing these booms and they don't really know where that's from? Does somehow is that at all linked?
I don't know if that's connected. I don't think it is, because in this area where I am, we've been hearing those booms for at least 6 years, and strange noises, and like you sat here like a jet engines going on and on and on for 2 hours on end, and you can't find them. And then these vibrations come and where the whole house will shake. That's been going on all over for years.
Are they doing fracking in your area? A lot of
there's no fracking here. No.
How do we know these aren't bleed throughs? How do we know they're not just dimensional, the veil's starting to thin and they're bleed throughs?
That's one of my theories about it, that they're portal openings, that we're moving into fifth dimension, and this could just be like growing pains that it's opening up. I do have a couple of cases of UFO sightings where people have heard the loud noises, and then they see a portal open up over in the sky over where they live, and then they'll see objects come in or out, and then it closes. So
That's wild.
One is in California and one is in Florida. These two cases that I've been working on.
So what comes in? What comes through?
Ships, craft.
Huh.
Craft come in or out when that happens, and I think it's a wormhole, maybe. Something moving interdimensionally, something big.
I just keep getting that the veil is thinning. I mean, I was telling you that we were on a trip, and we're up on this mountain and we're hiking, and I see this girl, and she's blonde. I just kind of see her out of the corner of my eye, and we're like at the trailhead, and she walks past my husband, and I turn and I look, and she's not there. And I realize, I don't know if it's somebody occupying the same space or what it is. And I just let it go. I didn't dwell on it. I didn't overthink it, which I normally do. And it makes me think that I wonder, because I think we're all on top of each other, and that somehow we are tuning into these different channels.
Yeah, different dimensions.
I believe so. I believe we're moving into fifth dimension, and I'm getting that person was from another dimension.
That's
that you
so cool.
saw.
And she was just hiking. Yeah. I mean, she's just a normal person. So now you are. Do you have a team around you that you bounce some of these ideas off of, either in this dimension, but really the other dimension, like Val Thor? Do you say, dude, what's going on with this? I mean, what do you think this is?
I have a whole team here in this dimension and in that dimension.
I wanna be
I
on your
work with a
team.
number of people. I work with White Cloud, Medicine Woman. I have a tall Nordic being that's completely covered in a white robe, and I ask his name, and he says, "I don't have a name." And there are several others. And if I ever, and what has happened over the years is that, well, they've kind of they work together, and they are working together with me. So when I ask a question, it's a collective answer. I will hear not just one of their voices, I will hear all of their voices giving me the same answer. So they are of extremely high vibration, and I know that they're coming from, a white light, so to speak, and that, what they say is true, and it's only in my best interest. And they also don't tell you anything until you're ready to hear it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah.
yeah, we have to keep constantly raise our vibration, and that's something that I work on every night. I meditate on that every night.
Yeah, but I mean, that was one thing that really struck me about you when we spoke is that you're so grounded. You don't feel woo woo, really, at all.
Yeah, I use both sides of my brain equally. I've taken tests along those lines, and yeah, it didn't surprise me because I work in the business world. I own several businesses, construction and real estate investments, and I help design the inside of houses, and I'm a chimney expert, and all of that keeps me very grounded, and my husband keeps me very grounded.
Yeah.
So I think I'm here to do all of those things, and eliminating one thing would make me unbalanced.
Well, I was just talking about that, about how it is this, it's staying grounded. And that is actually a fear that has recently come up again for me, is this idea that I know what the next thing that I'm wanting to talk about, but it just sort of keeps me in a box. I mean, how do you don't seem to have fear.
No,
Well, if I had
no.
that team around me, I wouldn't either. I mean, that's really beautiful. But
Oh, you've got some big guns in your team too.
thank you. But it's yeah, but I mean, what do you tell people? I mean, just kind of backing up a bit, what do you tell people when they say, so by the way, what do you do? I mean, obviously you're way past that because you're so out with everything, but you do have children and a husband and business and clients, and they just know that this is part of who you are. Yeah.
Well, I do kind of separate the two worlds, and I use a different name for. I don't use my real name when I'm writing or talking about this stuff.
Okay.
I use my pen name, so I keep it somewhat separated. Except when I'm on television in an interview, because there's a big UFO flap, and then one of our customers says to my husband, "Hey, I saw your wife on TV."
She was on
You know,
CNN.
I try to keep that. I don't discuss that with our customers, at all.
Do they
just
know?
know me
They just don't know
as
at all?
the chimney person. Yeah.
Chimney
No,
person.
they don't know.
That's fascinating.
But speaking
It's-
of books,
it's-
you've written a number of
Like
books. I mean, this
11
is how
books?
you share all of this information, right?
Yeah.
You have videos and books and classes and workshops. You're not just downloading it; you're putting it back out.
Yes, because the collective consciousness I was talking about, want me to do that. And I'm working on a documentary right now too.
What's
and
that about?
and that's about unexplained events, and then at the end is going to be my opinion about how all of this stuff is connected and works together. So we'll see
So
how that turns out.
When can we expect that? Or where are you in the process?
We're just in the planning stages right now, and I just got my video team set up, so now I have to write it all up. So
Do you
I've
have
got
all
a
the
couple books I have
unexplained
to
events?
finish first.
I'm sorry.
What's that?
Some of them, not all, but eventually I'll get them all out there. I'm working on a big case in California right now, and I'm going out there in September to be on site to investigate this. And that is definitely a wormhole.
Like a
And I'm
portal.
hoping to get evidence.
Can you tell us more about that, or are you not in that? Can you not talk about it yet?
I can talk about it. I've been working with this person for about 5 years because she started having strange things happen at her house, and they watched two orbs of light come in their house and then go outside next to a tree. So she went outside to see what was going on, and she saw the tree looked like it had Christmas lights all over it. So she took pictures of it, but then other things showed up in the pictures, and there were actually no lights on it. There were just these orbs that were these different colors. And when she started taking pictures, she got other things in her backyard, and as she worked with whatever these energies are, she started becoming in tune with them, although she had no clue about anything paranormal. Is not into this stuff at all, and she didn't know what it was, but she just wanted to do experiments. So as she's become more in tune with them, more objects show up in her pictures. And this has been investigated by some big name researchers, and I can't tell you their names, but that's why I need to get out there, because she's taken over 250,000 pictures.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
That are incredible. And this book is going to be just 90% pictures that she's taken and that have been taken with my night vision camera that comes on with motion activated, that she put up out there. So now I'm going to get my own evidence. I've got all kinds of equipment that I'm going to use, but I understand that other investigators have gotten some really strange readings. Wow. It's a portal. It absolutely is a portal to other dimensions and a wormhole.
No, it's like, what do you, like, is it all, I don't want to say benevolent, but is it all
Higher vibrating?
higher vibrating, or is it just a mix of everything in there and it's just what we're ready to perceive, we can see, or?
Well, I remote viewed this a number of times, and every time what I see is just things moving through.
Yeah.
It's not it's not them coming on her property and looking at her or her family.
Central station for.
Yeah, it's simply a highway. It's just a highway for things to move through. Now, she has had a few paranormal things happen, like the water comes on outside the house and inside the house, full blast, when there's nobody there doing this. And they're just afraid to leave the house because they're afraid it'll come on and they'll have flood in their house. Exactly. And it's not only her neighbors. This is happening to her neighbors too. And then she and her neighbors have seen like shadow people walking through their houses, but they don't seem to have any interest in the occupants. They're just passing through.
They're somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. Just interdimensional, moving through.
Well, that's what years ago, I don't know, 4 years ago now, I was sitting in a restaurant, and most people have heard the story. I was sitting in a restaurant and I get the ringing in my ear, which I used to get, and I look up and I see a grid. I had asked a question. James Van Praagh brought through my grandfather, and I'd asked a question because my grandfather had mentioned my hair was different, and so after I saw James Van Praagh, I went home and I thought, how did he not know if he's always with me? And so 2 years later, I'm at this restaurant, get the ringing in the ear, I look around, and it's all like black space, almost like a grid, like all, and where everyone sat was a colored orb. And they said, this is how we see you. And when my grandfather dropped into James Van Praagh's body, he used the 3D eyes to see the 3D, and that's when he saw you like you're seeing me now. And I was like, that makes sense. So these orbs, when they're in their own reality, they're people. They look like whatever they look like. It's just that we're seeing them differently. I mean, like we're seeing them we're seeing them in their energetic form, I guess. She really wants out. So
Interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
What? I'll have to put that in my information bank.
I was going to ask you about your books. You've written one on ET contact and one on spirits, communication, ghost hunting.
Yeah, Gateway to the Dead is a ghost hunter's field guide, but it is from the point of view of a psychic. So I give all the mundane, standard, scientific equipment to use ghost hunting, but then I have a little, some training in there for people to open their third eye so they can communicate with spirits as well. And then I go through all the different types of entities that a person might run into, and then of course when to call in an expert and when to walk away from an investigation. And there's also a listing of some of the better places to investigate that are open to the public.
Well, so how do you protect? I mean, do you shield up, or are you to a point where you don't need to?
No, I will always very quickly put a bubble of white light around me, and just pull in energy so that anything negative can't get to me. Yeah, and my team, if there's a team there.
It was weird. I found myself, we were in the airport last week, and I found it was such an interesting, as above, so is, thank you. And there were 5 of us, but the 4 of us were standing here, and all of a sudden I felt this urge, and I don't shield up probably as much as I should. And it's like I put, reflective mirrors around us, and it's just, it just instantly shielded up. And my kids and my son had his phone, and we were all, like, our heads were touching. So it's sort of like we went shunk, and we got into this little, and I mean, I didn't say anything to them. It was just something that I just did. And for some reason there was a need to kind of pull in and shield up. And so, I know I do it, and I just need to probably be a little more active about it.
I think you're intuitive enough to know when you need to do that and when you don't. Yeah, and I do the mirror technique too, so that it's reflected back.
So it's like cloaking too, right? Where they just can't see you.
Yeah, and then anything that they send to you will go back to them.
Bounces off me and sticks on you.
Yeah, kind of like.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, so what jazzes you? I mean, like what just makes you want to get up at 3 a.m. to go work on?
Oh, I usually don't like to get up at 3 a.m. But
at 5.
If they want me to work on something, that's the time they wake me up. That's the witching hour, isn't it? I mean, I would like to get a full night's sleep all the time, but no, once in a while I'll hear a voice, something wakes me up, I look at the clock, it's 3 o'clock. I'm like, oh boy, okay. So then I have to get up, go downstairs, usually go to the computer and do some automatic writing. Or just sit and listen, and I'll just, write down what they want. It seems that they've told me that that's the easiest and best time to reach people, because that's when their mind is just quiet, and it's very, very, there's no distractions, there's no noise, there's, and you can concentrate and you can listen.
Like the clear, everything's very clear. Well, so do your children, do you see this ability all the way around in your family?
Yes. Both of my daughters are psychic, and 4 of my grandchildren are psychic.
Wow.
Some more than others. None of them have the abilities I do yet, but I'm hopeful that they will.
So there's no lion in your house. I mean,
No.
You guys need to.
No, anything goes in my house. And I think, neither one of my parents were psychic, but they never told me that there was no such thing as a ghost or that I couldn't do something.
Oh.
And they didn't encourage me, but they didn't discourage me either. And when my mother saw, what was going on with me, by the time I was age 11, she bought me a bunch of Edgar Cayce books and said, here, I think you need to read these. And I was so glad, because I said, oh, there's someone else like me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know.
What a gift.
And at that time, there was no internet. And if you want to read a book, you had to go to the library, or go buy something. And so we were pretty limited. I'm sure that nowadays an 11-year-old will be able to find everything on the internet.
Good, yeah.
But I was glad to have it. I really was, because then I realized, and they never shut me out with. They knew when I was really, really young that something was going on. They thought I was reincarnated. I think my father said I think she was reincarnated. Was a Native American recently, and because my first words were "ha ha," and I was looking at a rose in the corner of my bedroom. I was in the crib, and I was looking at the rose in the corner, and it looked like an Indian chief. And I said "ha ha" and pointed at it, and my dad looked at that, and he goes, "Oh boy, I think she's reincarnated." So, and I used to hear drums all the time when I was young too. Native American drums. I knew what they were, even though I was very little.
So your parents they were more than open. I mean, to even discuss reincarnation.
At a young age.
Well, can't the drums also be craft, ET craft coming in?
I've come to know that is true. Because I would hear the drums, and then a blue-white light would come in the window, and I knew something was about to happen, that it was ETs.
And so you've been on the craft twice, remembering. I mean, you remember being on craft twice.
The first one was out of the crib, was in that room, in that bedroom, when I heard the drums, and then the blue-white light came in. And the next thing I knew, I had a terrible nosebleed, and there was just blood all over the bed. And I screamed for my parents, and they were able to get the nosebleed stopped. But I felt like there was something up in my nose that shouldn't be there.
Implant.
And so I never knew my entire life what had happened. And then I remote viewed it. Well, actually, I was regressed. And I saw that whole scene. There were 3 ETs that came in the room and took me up onto the craft, and then brought me back, and they put an implant in.
And before people... I don't want people to get scared by that. From what I understand, also, that sometimes they want to monitor, especially when they know that you have that kind of ability, or if you're a hybrid, that they want to be able, they want to know what's going on, and it's their way of like your heart rate, your emotional state, of kind of checking in on you too.
Yeah, it's their high technology that they're using to keep tabs on us. And if a person takes an implant out, they will come back and put 2 in.
See that one, and I'll put another.
Try to dig one out. And also, like you said, don't be afraid of it, because these are beings that are much further advanced than us technologically and mentally, and they're the way to communicate with them.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Pardon?
Do we have a name for this species? Like tall whites
No.
or the Asani?
The ones that I saw were tall grays.
Tall grays. Okay.
And they all had emotion. This group had emotion, and I could see wrinkles in their faces, and I knew their ages. I knew one was young, one was middle-aged, and one was older. And I didn't feel like there was any kind of harm that they wanted to cause, but they were. I did know that they were doing a job, and they had to do it very quickly, and they had to go on to the next person. They had every night, they had a certain number of people they had to do, and then, they had to keep tracking of all these different people. And I remote viewed it, and I saw my parents asleep in the other room, and there was an ET standing there, keeping them completely asleep while this process was being done to me. But there's no reason to fear it, because if they wanted to wipe us all out, they would have already done it.
Right.
There wouldn't be here.
No,
They're helping us in some fashion.
I think of the marine biologists that catch and tag
things,
something and then release it, and they're kind of trying to monitor migration patterns, and so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's way
I
more
think
than that.
that's a
but
good analogy.
Like nothing to fear. They're here to help.
I think so too. And I love that you agreed to come in and help us, help the rest of us. your abilities are amazing. I mean, I know that you live with it, and it's just part of who you are, and you're so integrated. But at the same time, I mean, I do you know how incredible these skills are?
I think most of the time I don't, uh, until somebody starts asking me questions and I can give them answers.
Yeah.
And it's not me personally. It's an agenda that somebody else has, that they have helped me have these things in order to help other people. And it wasn't anything that I grew up asking for until much later, when I realized what was going on. Then I would say, "Oh, can I do this?" But no, it's their agenda. It's not ours.
Well, no, and I agree with that. And it was in, interesting. I met this wonderful man on our camping trip, and he's anyway. We were talking about psychics and that type of thing, and he's actually a preacher. He's a chaplain, and he said, all of that is fine. He said it's just when people take it that I did it. I'm psychic. I'm in it, and I get his point. It's like it's this gift. It's this ability that I think I don't know. We're conduits to a large degree. So
Right. It's just coming through us.
right.
Yeah.
Because but the rest of us go, oh my gosh, she can talk to that person. I mean, Tiff and I have known a couple people that are phenomenal, and they really are. And I think it would be a hard thing to try to get around sometimes.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
feel like you turn it off is there an on and off switch, or is it just kind of on all the time? I know you said when you're doing your
Well,
business, you don't really talk about it, but
it's kind of on all the time, and I actually use it in my business. If somebody loses something, or if a car breaks down and they need to know what the problem is, they'll call me.
good.
If one of my men is in the field and they're working on something like a gas line and they want to know where it is before they drill, they'll call me first. So yeah, I use it all the time.
That's incredible. What a great superpower to have.
Well, okay, so I can just see
If
it.
only I could
Handy.
fly.
You meet the man that you start to date. You're like, oh, by the way, I mean, how does that go down? I mean, how did he take all of this?
It was a gradual thing, and of course, when I met my husband, I didn't have all of these abilities. I had some, and I was doing readings, but not like this. And so it's a gradual thing. And he started out being a big skeptic. He wasn't from any background like this. He didn't know anybody who had abilities. And but now today he's a full believer. And if he wants to know something, he calls me. I mean, he calls me almost every day. Do you think I should do this or whatever? Yeah.
Yep. No.
great.
So he's got used to it.
But you're not doing private readings per se, because I'm sure just the volume of trying to run businesses and do all that.
I do some private readings.
Okay.
I didn't do them for 20 years, and now I'm doing them again because I'm being told I need to.
Okay.
How do you
So-
how do you decide who you work with?
If the person needs to work with me, they'll find me.
Okay.
And if I mean, that's just my guide to go by. And I just don't go around telling everybody I do readings. They have to find out from a friend, or they have to seek me out through the internet. There has to be a reason why. And I do a one-time reading. I mean, it's not, some people might come to me a year later, but I don't need to see that person a long time. And a reading, it lasts 1 hour. At the first 20 minutes, they'll have everything that they need to know, but then, they'll always think of other questions. So that's why I do an hour.
Sure.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your gift.
Yeah, I mean,
Talents and abilities.
well, so how I've, just for you guys out there, how I found her is we someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, we can video ETs and or craft in the air," and I could do it. And so he introduced me to you because I had a few questions, and I think he had checked in with you, and so it was really an interesting. I don't know. It was just a great what's the word? Trail, and yeah. So we got to meet another amazing person.
And I got to meet you guys.
Well, thank you, and I'd love to have you back on.
Good energy, both of you.
Thank you. So do you. I just love how grounded you are. I mean, I think that's what your day job does too. It feels like it keeps you in this world.
It does. And now we've made a connection for a reason. So everything happens for a reason. I don't believe in coincidences.
I don't either. And I have a feeling I know what it is, but we're going to have to stay tuned for that because there's a lot that has to go back behind that. But I want to thank you. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing.
Thank you.
I feel like we covered a lot in a very short period of time. And
Just scratched the surface, though.
Yes. And if you guys... Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, if you just read Margie's bio at margiekay.com, it's just pages and pages, and every one of them is every paragraph is like, oh, tell me more.
Really? Yeah, go to her website. Her website is phenomenal. Videos, blog. You can reach out to her if you
Classes, workshops, on all kinds of things.
Yeah, and you have a documentary coming out, and you're working on. I know at least one more book. That sounds very interesting. Three.
I can't do just one thing at once. I've got to do
sleep or not.
not very much. No
how
sleep.
Much?
Maybe 4 hours a night.
Wow.
Now, is that all you need, or is that all you get?
No, I do. I need more than that, but that's all I get because I might be lying in bed, but my mind is going and I can't sleep.
It just spins.
All this input comes in. My group sends all this info in at once so that maybe I'll pick one of those projects and get going on it. It's kind of crazy.
Well, but do you have like a coasting time? I mean, it's like I'm finding that a lot happens and then there's a coasting time, kind of the calm before the storm. Or is it always the storm, so to speak?
Pretty much the storm all the time. I am trying to take a vacation in September, but part of that is investigation. But the rest of it is going to be just fun. Yeah.
Well, keep it grounded because we want you around a long time. I want to see more books and documentaries and workshops and classes. So.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you. Reach out to her. I mean, it is. I check out your stuff, and I can't wait to see what you're doing with Free. I mean, that I found that and that was its own little trail. So I'm thrilled that you're doing something with them. I can't wait to see what that is. Cool. But you've done things with them, haven't you?
Well, I've known Ray for a while. Wrote that article about him, and I participated in their survey, which is the survey of abductees.
Yeah.
And so they sent out 3 separate surveys, which were quite extensive, that's interesting, and the results are interesting, and the books are 3-4 inches thick. It's kind of crazy, but I was really honored to have them ask me to do a chapter, so that is my big thing I'm working on right now to get finished.
I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to read that. That's just such incredible minds, I mean, and I do love the investigative stuff and that application because I think there's so much woo, which the woo is beautiful and it's fun, but I like it a little more grounded and just there's a reason for things and how they unfold. So, we'll let you go so you can go be with your family, and I just want to thank you again, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you, Margie.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.